Hello and welcome to Cork Audio. If you are a returning viewer, thank you for coming back, and if you are a new viewer, well, hello and thank you as well. So, I've recently finished up repairs and modifications on this Blue Circle BC202 power amplifier. If you follow me on social media such as Facebook or Instagram, you may have noted that I shared that I received this amplifier about a month and a half ago for some repairs. Unfortunately, it had a power conditioner in front of it that had gone awry, and well, things typically go in a chain. So we had to do some repairs and just some maintenance on this piece, and we are doing our final listening tests, preparing to say goodbye to this big, beautiful brute. So before I pack it up and ship it, I wanted to give my impressions on this amplifier for a couple of reasons. One, it's the first power amplifier that I've actually listened to by Angela-Gilbert Yeung in person. I've, of course, seen a lot of them, but I've not actually heard any yet. And, well, the best place to listen is, of course, in your own home and own system. This is my test system. It is in my living room, so it is a shared space, but it is also fine-tuned for my own reference. Anything that I repair or modify, this is the final arbiter and where I actually listen and test that specific piece, because I'm extremely familiar with my speakers, I'm extremely familiar with the room, and I will immediately notice something that is different. Also going along with that, I wanted to say, because of that, I'm not a reviewer. This isn't a review space. It's not going to be completely 100% professional, nice, clean, and you're not going to notice $1,000 cables on these pieces of equipment. And you're not going to see that for any type of testing anyway. I don't use expensive audiophile grade cables just for testing because, well, if it's going to sound good, it's going to sound good with regular decent cables, and I need something that's going to be robust for me plugging and unplugging things in thousands of times. And maybe if it's something that you integrate into your system, well, that's up to you and your discretion on what you use at that point. So just using regular cables for testing, and I just wanted to put that out there as well. So I wanted to give my impressions on this amplifier and impressions on a essentially full Gilbert Yeung system minus my source. And I also wanted to showcase some of the design changes over time from Blue Circle components, specifically around 20 years ago, and kind of comparing the in-depth look that I gave you of the C312, because this is the most modern offering that you can still purchase and, order made to order. And this is the latest technologies, the latest topologies and ideas of what has been tested over time and what has worked best, and of course what has been implemented for the best use in current products. So I wanted to just kind of showcase some of the differences in some of the older Gilbert Yeung components as well, and just give a real in-depth look at this unique amplifier. So let's get a closer look at this BC202. So let's take a good look here at the outside of the unit. So first thing I want to point out is this front faceplate. This is something that I had to redo. Originally, the customer wanted me to just try and get a paint match to touch up a few areas just from wear and tear over the past 2 decades. Unfortunately, UPS managed to drop this amplifier on the corner, and while there was some damage, it wasn't too much that I couldn't repair, so we went ahead and repaired it instead of having to spare the expense of making a complete new faceplate. So we were able to save a little bit of money there, and the customer was able to get the color that they wanted. Since it was already going to be refinished, he asked for a black color. This was originally a dark gray, and I've gone with a semi-gloss onyx black for this. And the reasoning for the semi-gloss is because it does not show scratches, indentations, any type of perfections as badly, so it will last longer. Everything else is a powder-coated steel, so it's going to do absolutely fine, but this is wood, so it's softer, so it's going to be more susceptible to any type of damage or impact. I wanted to take a look here at, of course, the glowing blue circle, but it might be hard to note in video compared to in person, but the illumination is a little bit different in tonality and how it just how it looks. And one of the reasons why is because, as I said, this is a 20-plus-year-old amplifier. So back then, Gilbert was using incandescent light bulbs for illumination. So that's actually an incandescent, where these two components are using LEDs. And of course, as I said, this is powder-coated steel. There we go, get it to focus. Nice powder-coated steel with plenty of heat fins throughout here. Nice holes for it to ventilate. You can see some of the heat sinks through here. And of course, we have the tube input stage back here, so there's extra heat excavation there as well. And then this is for the power supply side, any heat coming through there. Around here on this other side, this is an upgrade that has been done to this amplifier. We have an FCF jack and a tube jack. So these are both special considerations for the commonly available capacitor packs. This is a special consideration because, as you note, the AC is actually the same kind of connector as the current FCF. So for protection of the customer and protection of the equipment, this had to be done in a different jack. So that jack will not plug into here and vice versa. So this will be DC only to increase the internal capacitance value of the output stage of the amplifier. And this tube jack is a specialized type of SP jack, so this will actually increase the capacitance of the input stage in the B+. So this is the B+, this is the output stage. The rear of the amplifier is also extremely unique for a couple of reasons. You have two connectors here, two terminals for connecting speakers and speaker wires, but what I love is these terminals are completely custom in themselves. These do not accept banana plugs. These are not off-the-shelf type binding posts. These were actually hand-built out of components by Angela-Gilbert Yeung. So you have your two washers there. These are typically for, this would work really well with spades, but unfortunately I do not have any spades, especially on my testing speaker cables. So I just have these gold-plated adapters here to make that work. Is it the best? No. Does it matter that much? Also no. So here is the AC inlet. So this is something that Gilbert used to do and no longer does. All equipment now just has a typical IEC, but this actually had this power connector, so it required the special adapter here for that. But it also kind of makes it nice to be able to remove that for packing or shipping. We have the ground lift here for the signal ground, balanced and unbalanced inputs. We're using balanced on this because it is natively balanced through the inputs here with the dual triode inputs. And we also have a couple of ground screws here as well in case you needed to connect to chassis ground. So now let's get a look at some of the interior of the amplifier. And I feel like this is a great example of why silicone is used throughout modern designs, because like I said, design principles have changed over time because of what has worked and what has not. So coming to this actual steel top chassis part here, you note that there's some adhesive here for acoustic resonance dampening, so this doesn't resonate. This is the one part of the chassis that is nowhere else supported, so it has this to make sure it does not vibrate or resonate. New products, if you watched my video on the SP36 capacitor pack and the C312 preamplifier, they actually have a layer of silicone built up into a tabletop, or as Angela-Gilbert likes to call them, a helicopter landing pad, to actually help with the resonance. This was what was done before, so this is the progression there. But also on the topic of silicone, and one of the reasons why silicone is used exclusively throughout is because Angela-Gilbert Yeung over time has tried a number of adhesives, and this is one that I actually had to replace. This utilized a sort of black adhesive, and over time it started cracking and drying up, so it needed to be reattached. So I went ahead and replaced it with silicone. Now, one of the reasons why Angela-Gilbert uses adhesives for building is because it allows for greater customization in a 3D type of build scenario. What I mean by 3D build scenario is comparing it to like a circuit board, like right here. A PCB is going to be rigid. It's just going to be a two-dimensional plane. This type of build style allows you to do essentially whatever you need to do for each individual specific component. So for something like this that needs to have heat excavation, something that needs to have the consideration that it's going to be hotter, that it might actually do something where it could affect a capacitor or anything of that type, you can put what you need where you need it, and it's not going to be constrained to that two-dimensional plane on a board where then you have to worry about your traces more often. This allows a lot more freedom to put things where you need them and have better separation of each part that you need. So right here, as you notice, the inputs are right next to the input section, that very critical point where you could input a lot of noise into this unit is kept short. All of the AC is kept up front, away from all of the signal. Everything back here is DC except for the AC ran through the center, that is done through the center of the main capacitors up underneath of the input stage, and ran along the chassis ground for lowest noise. Another thing of why silicone and adhesives are used, well, like I said, only silicone essentially now, is because of its anti-vibration qualities. If you look at this in the 3D design principle and think of it kind of like a PCB, this is essentially a flipped upside down circuit. So you have all the conductors up top compared to on the bottom of a PCB and the traces. So all of this is rigid. This is the 14 gauge solid core copper for high conductivity. And it's all up top, so this is all rigid. So if you have any type of vibration, if I were to flick something, that vibration would want to transmit across all of that. Taking a look back at the entire input stage, it's essentially floating on an anti-vibration platform. Every single capacitor, these voltage regulators for the filaments, this large film capacitor, these film output capacitors, and the actual tubes themselves, everything is lifted on an anti-vibration platform. And then even here on the actual few circuit boards that you see, the caps are actually mounted with silicone as well. One, so they don't move, they're not going to vibrate, and it's going to be a non-issue. So this is some of the other work that I had to do to this unit, and this is for longevity and for the sound of the unit. Now, I didn't want to make a repair that was going to stand out from the build of the unit. Plus, of course, I want to learn from Angela-Gilbert Yeung's experience. So I did this repair and modification trying to emulate the same styling of the amp. And as you can see, everything is kind of built on acrylic boards. So I actually didn't have enough room to put this section on the actual ground plane. And I wanted to keep it away from, you know, the sources of AC and keep it away from the output stage capacitors over here. So I did something very similar in getting a acrylic plate with the standoffs, and we have it mounted here. And this is a voltage drop for the B+. This actually will help save tube life, and also helps, like I said, the sound signature a little bit as well. So I just kind of wanted to do that in the same styling and have some fun with it as well. So I wanted to, this kind of looks like a waterfall dropping that voltage into the B+ stage there. This is all of the power supply. This is all original Gilbert Yeung. This section here is something that you would not see anymore, though it's still a very smart idea, being able to disconnect each and every single part of the power supply and what it feeds. These are all of your AC lines mounted on top of the main toroidal transformer here. But you note that there's actually connectors used, where in new Gilbert Yeung components, everything is completely soldered and no connectors are used. So that's kind of something unique that you won't see in new components that you did in some of the older ones. These heat sinks are something that Angela still uses, and well, for good reason. They are very good heat sinks. Even this amplifier has been sitting here for, heck, I probably have it warming up for a good 2-3 hours now, and they are barely warm. Of course, they get a little bit warmer with the cover on, but due to their nature and these actual round pegs in comparison to a straight line type of fin there, this dissipates heat much better and also allows for greater maneuverability of where you actually wanted to mount any of the output devices on here. It doesn't matter where you mount it, it's going to perform very well. So these do very well of keeping a stable temperature. So we have the lid back on, about to put these screws in for the final time for our final listening test. But I kind of wanted to show the testing setup that I've been working with this amplifier. Like I said, one of the reasons why I utilized the balanced connections for this was for helping to gain match these two amplifiers. But I still had to adapt a little bit with this NAD because of the very high damping factor. The vocals would be a bit recessed and the bass would be a little bit overpowering. So I'm actually using the DF16 damping factor controllers. These are like the very first level of attenuation for damping factor. Anything else just kind of really recesses the bass more than necessary. So just kind of the bass level there, and it has paired very well. So the NAD is controlling just the woofers, and then the BC202 is powering the actual top end. So the most important thing, how does it sound? For someone who has been described as a wordsmith and someone who can actually sit down and I can actually write fairly well, much better than I can actually speak, especially when it comes to putting my thoughts together. And like I said, I'm not a reviewer either, and I don't like to try and use a lot of the terminology that reviewers typically use. And when it comes to Angela-Gilbert Yeung components, I find myself time and time again, every time that I hear a different component, I find that I'm not able to describe it. And it's not, and one of the reasons why is because it touches something that other components don't. Like I said, I'm an audio tech. I've tested, repaired, and listened to a lot of components specifically on these speakers in this room. So I know what sounds good, I know what works, I know what doesn't. I know what I like, I know what I don't. And it's easy for me to pick out. It's like, okay, this one has some more resolution. Oh, this one's got a bit more sound staging to it. But Gilbert Yeung's components consistently touch upon something much more important, the human connection and the emotion. And that in itself is hard to describe. The fact that you can just sit down and be able to be happy and listen every time to something and be happy to what you're actually listening to. I know there's been times in the past repeatedly where I've, wanted to listen to music, and sometimes my system doesn't sound as good. Maybe it's the power, maybe it's my mood. The BC202 or any of Gilbert's components, it doesn't matter. Even if I'm having an absolute crap day, I can listen to the BC202 and it's something that will put a smile on your face and a tear in your eye type thing. And like I said, that in itself is hard to describe, because as large as this amplifier is, it does not exist in the music. And what I mean by that is every type of amplifier has some sort of presence or some sort of control and grip on the speakers. I mean, we have terminology and ways of measuring or ways of talking about that kind of thing, but it's not about the grip, it's not about the type of resolution, because once you get to a certain point, it's just kind of different and you're judging by incremental changes of, is it actually better? And what is better? Are you looking for more resolution? Are you looking to hear something that you haven't before? Or are you looking to actually enjoy your playlists and, just want to be stuck in the listening position for hours on end? And that's a question that I've really answered for myself in listening to Gilbert Yeung's components. So, I know it doesn't say much about how it sounds, but I feel like that makes a big statement in itself. And if I had to get critical about its sound signature, that more has to do with the input stage, and that's one of the benefits of a hybrid type amplifier. Power amplifier, one of the biggest, components to how it sounds is the input stage, because the output stage is morely just to actually handle the load of whatever you're trying to connect it to and whatever it's capable to actually handle. So with this being a hybrid, you can change the tube out, roll it to something else if you like a different sound. So I actually have ECC88s in this, so it's a really sweet type, harmonious type tube, and it's considered, type of really musical. So everything is sweet to an extent. Like, it's not syrupy type sweet. It's still very high resolution. I mean, I'm not losing anything at all. And even listening to like quick guitar and everything, you can still hear the plucks, everything. You can hear the resonance, but it's not going to be in your face and quick It's going to be just a little bit rolled off to the point where it's very listenable. It's very enjoyable for what it is, though I do admit I had to do some adjustment to the C312 by increasing the solid state tonality of it to try and make up for that, because where I had it before, I kind of like that sweet tonality, but that was already naturally present in the BC202, so I had to accommodate for that, and luckily I have the C312 to be able to do that. But otherwise, as I said, it's just extremely, it's just one of those things that you wish that you didn't have to send back. Luckily, the C312 was something that came back, but I see exactly why the owner of this said that, you know, he doesn't want to upgrade. He doesn't need to upgrade. This is definitely an end-game type component. I could be extremely happy with how this is as is, except honestly for the NAD, because that's the only thing that really pulls away from the experience, because it doesn't pair as well. But I'm about to do some modifications to that, and that's going to be a different video for a different day and a different subject. But I'll kind of leave it at that. I know that I've said a lot without saying much, but that's my impressions on the BC202. I'm happy to have seen it come. I'm sad to see it leave. And I'm extremely happy to have had the opportunity to work on it and to listen to it. But I'm even happier knowing that this is going to go back home and make someone else this happy for years on end. And in high-end audio, what else are you looking for? I know that's what I'm looking for. And that definitely provides. And that's a 20-year-old component. So if anything, that solidifies the fact that I really need to make it up to Canada soon to hear the new stuff. So thank you for watching. Like I said, be sure to follow me on my business pages on Facebook, Instagram. That's all I have now besides YouTube, but I share more there with photos because, of course, YouTube and videos take longer and more setup. But for now, I'm going to enjoy the rest of my Friday afternoon with a little bit more listening of this BC202 before it gets packed up. So take care, and thank you for watching.